Hi guys, welcome back. And this time around, I'm bringing you a double review. I know that both of these IEMs have been out already for a couple of weeks, and I have been a little bit, let's call it offline as of late. I'm talking about the SIMGOT EW300. I've got here the standard version. I've also got the DSP version, but I'll leave that for another review, and as well the HBB version, and the Kiwi ears Canta. Uh, these two IEMs belong to, let's call it a group of IEMs that have been becoming popular as of late, which is a group of IEMs which are using not only a hybrid and a tribrid configuration, but also microplanars in a more serious manner, let's put it that way. This tendency of using these microplanars was initially began with the Phoenix Call from Celeste. The Celeste Phoenix Call was probably the very first, or one of the first, to use these microplanars. It used a 7mm dynamic driver, 2 BAs, and 2 microplanars in a tribrid configuration. And it was priced initially at $119. It then went up to $129, and it's now come down again to about $114. Subsequently, we had the ISN Neo 3 come out with again a DD, or actually 2 DDs and a microplanar. The DDs were 6mm in this case. One was more focused on the bass frequencies, the other one was focused on as well the bass, but the mids was its main area of function, and then the planar for the highs and upper highs, or super highs, or whatever you want to call it. We then were gifted a couple of months ago with the SIMGOT Super Mix 4, which again brought a new, well, not a new, because actually the Kiwi Quintet was the first one to use this quad driver type configuration, but the SIMGOT, the SM4 came out with a DD, a BA, a planar, and a PZT driver, much like the Kiwi Quintet had done. The only difference was the Quintet had 2 BAs, and therefore the name Quintet, 5 drivers. With the EW300 and with the Canta, we again have these unusual configurations, let's put it that way. Usually when we talk about a hybrid, we're talking about a DD and a BA. That's usually what first, what jumps to your mind. With the EW300, they've given us, let's say, a reduced version of the SM4. SIMGOT here has decided to obviously keep the DD, they kept the planar, and they kept the PZT. And the Canta has got a DD and 2 microplanars. So the commonality in all of these IEMs here is the usage of a microplanar in the upper registers, in the upper frequencies, and then the addition or not of BAs to help out in the mid frequencies, or then a DD taking care of that, either a dedicated DD or the DD that is working is doing that whole frequency range from the bass into the mids, and then also the usage of a PZT to add some more sparkle to the higher frequencies. Out of all of these IEMs, you'll notice there's one here which is not anything of that, which is the EW200. And why did I bring out the EW200? Well, because it basically uses the same shell as the EW300, just that it's a single ED, and there's a reason why it's here, which I'll get to it in a second. In terms of price, we're talking roughly for the standard version here, $69 for the EW300. This from LINSOUL. The Canta costs $89, so $20 more. If we're talking about the DSP version, that's $79. If we're talking about the HBB version, that's $89. So you could say that the Canta is basically at the same price as the EW300, although yes, we do have those 3 types, or 3 variations that we can choose of the EW300. The biggest difference between the EW300, honestly, in the HBB configuration to the standard version is it's got a little bit more bass. Nothing that you couldn't do with an equalizer, but like I said, we'll keep that to another review. As for those other IEMs at the top there, I'll just run you through the prices just for the sake of you guys knowing. The EW200 is about $35 to $39. The SIMGOT, the Celeste Phoenix Call 114, like I said. The SM4, sorry, around $135, and the Neo 3 $199. So that's actually the most expensive out of all of these IEMs. Anyway, talking about these two now, which is the main thing here, and this is not going to be a difficult review to do, because there's a lot of similarities between these IEMs and some of the IEMs on the top there. So knowing those ones, you will basically get a general idea what these two are about. EW300, as I mentioned, 3-driver configuration. It's a 10mm dynamic driver, and then a planar, which I believe is a 6mm, and then that PZT driver. The sound is in essence a very sound which is reminiscent of the sound of the EW200. That's why I've got it here, which leads me to believe that the dynamic driver used here is basically doing very much the same work as it was doing. I'm not saying it's the same dynamic driver, but what I'm saying is the dynamic driver in the EW200 was working full range, and the dynamic driver here, the perception I get when I listen to it is that they are both working or in very much the same frequency range. Then only the difference is that this is helped out by that planar and that PZT to give a little bit extra detail, a little bit extra sparkle. And the interesting thing which I at least found was, and again, mind you, this obviously is with the music that I listen to, and as well taking into consideration that my hearing is not what it used to be, so let's keep those two caveats there. I found the sound between these two more similar than different. They both have a nice warm tonality. They both have a nice focus on the mids and the bass, which is very nicely executed on either one of them. And then, yes, on occasions, I did find a little bit extra more detail here than I did there, although the difference wasn't really huge. What I maybe would be the more correct way of putting this is that the detail up there was perhaps less elegant, less polished, while the detail here was a little bit more a little bit smoother, a little bit more pleasant in its delivery. And when I'm talking about detail, I'm talking, the way that those cymbals come across, the way that certain wind instruments, the way that they are conveyed in terms of timbre and tonality, maybe a little bit more nicely executed, but honestly, not a huge difference. And when you actually consider that the EW200 is very much an underrated IEM and shoots significantly above its price range, that speaks very highly of both of them. Let's put it that way. Bass, like I said, nicely executed. It's got a nice bass execution. It's detailed. It's relatively quick. I didn't really find it had any difficulty in resolving any of the tracks that I usually like listening to. Stuff from Girl in the Red Dress from Gregory Karunas to Piano in the Dark by Brenda Russell. The bass was always nicely present, nicely conveyed. Mids, I find, are perhaps, I'm not going to say are the star of the show, but the mids here on the EW300 are really well executed. I'm not going to deny it. They've got a nice, very pleasant tonality and timbre. With the planar and the PZT having been very nicely implemented in a manner where it's not adding any unnecessary harshness or any lack of polish or anything of the sort. They are, you notice that they are there, but in a very subdued manner. That's basically what I'm trying to say, and that's what I found is the difference between when I was listening to the EW200 and the EW300, is that the EW200 might be perhaps a little bit more sensitive with whatever cable you might use. If you're a firm cable believer, might be a little bit more sensitive with how deep you fit it, so tip selection, or with the source that you're using. I actually used, as you can see, the UK and the RU7 here for all of the listening. I just just thoroughly enjoy using these two dongles. Honestly, with my NX7, my Frankenstein combination. I also listened a little bit with the Q15, but I just find that these two dongles with this amp, they just, I don't know, there's a very nice synergy here, and with any one of these IEMs, I think it was more than suffice to bring out the best that they have to offer. In terms of its technical capabilities, I mean, I would have liked a little bit more that sensation of atmosphere, a little bit bigger soundstage, if you want to put it that way. But again, nothing that's offensive, nothing that you could say, oh no, it's lacking or anything. No, more than capable in terms of its soundstage, more than capable in terms of imaging. Detailed retrieval was again, ample enough, resolution as well. Really, I mean, I wouldn't say that the technical capabilities of the EW300 are standout, but also not offensive. And when you consider the price more than within what is acceptable as well, but more than what is expected at this price. So overall, a nice IEM. Let's put it this way: a nice IEM. Now, compared to the IEMs above, obviously, like I said, there's a big price difference here. We're talking twice the price to the Phoenix Call, roughly more or less the same thing with the SM4, 3 times to the Neo 3. With the Phoenix Call, I think the biggest difference that you will notice between the two of them is that they doesn't have the same bass energy that the EW300 has. However, the mids being a little bit more forward does make things a little bit more fun at times. Certain songs, especially if you like listening to rock, I would say that the Phoenix Call might on occasion be a little bit more engaging than the EW300. I'm not saying that the EW300 is boring by any chance. No, I would think that there with the very few rock songs that I like listening to, that just sounded a little bit more appealing. With things like, for example, let me go here. With things like, for example, my apologies here. With things like Memories from Terenzio Di Cristofano, or Piano Man by Wolfgang Maffner. I've always been a very big fan of the Phoenix Call. Let's make that perfectly clear. But the EW300, when you consider its price, which is half of the Phoenix Call, I have to admit that it doesn't stay behind the Phoenix Call as much as you would probably think. And as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the bass, it is a better IEM than the Phoenix Call. It's not a huge difference, but it's down to cubic inches. It's got a bigger dynamic driver, so there's more quantity of bass with less sensation of strain. Not that the Phoenix Call is lacking, but yes, you do notice that with especially if you like listening to some electronic music, you will notice that those more intense bass lines there maybe are a little bit lacking. If it's mid-bass punch, mid-bass impact that you're looking for, then I would say they are very much matched with, as I mentioned there as well, with some rock music that I listen to, maybe coming across a little bit more lively over there. But look, I want to avoid going into rock music because it's not a genre that I like listening to. Where I like listening to, as some of you might know, is the more jazz, some hip hop, some R&B, some EDM. Let me see here. Something that you might be more familiar with. Feels so right. No, let's see here from. I was trying to look here for a song, not Memories. My apologies. Control by Blue Ship. Just plays it very well. It's a kind of a more relaxing type of EDM song. Plays it very nice. It's got a nice vibe to its playback. It really does its job nicely. I'm not going to complain there. For example, another one. Egyptian Sun by Francis Mercier as well. Beautiful. So overall, what I can summarize about the EW300, it is very competent when it comes to giving enough engagement, although it's more laid back nature sometimes might leave you wanting just a little bit more compared to the Neo 3. They have that similar vibe of a more relaxed presentation of the planars, both of them. Again, the bass here is superior to there, and it's down to once again a question of cubic inches, bigger dynamic driver, so you'll notice it. What the Neo 3 might just be a little bit more capable is giving you that sensation of soundstage and imaging. Is it suffice to justify 3 times the price? That's something that I have a hard time saying yes. Again, what plays in favor here of the EW300 is for its $69, it is extremely competent. And if I could make some argument for the Phoenix Call maybe being something that is a viable alternative, or something that might justify itself because the price is somewhat closer, although there are differences. With the Neo 3, it's a harder one to justify. The Neo 3, in my opinion, however, of a really nice IM that it is, $200 is $200, and it's not 2 times better than the EW300. It's not 3 times better than the EW300 in terms of its performance. And then finally, the SM4. And contrary to what maybe some people might have said or might say, the SM4 is a better IM. End of story. You have that same smooth, well executed presentation of the planar and PZT, but just that little extra more energetic to give then songs just a little bit more life. And as I said when I reviewed the SM4, it shoots way above its price point. It is an IM that can trade blows with IMs in the upper $200 range quite easily. So although the EW300 is, let's say, a mini version of the SM4, I don't think it has done enough to justify itself. Yes, I forgot to mention one thing. It's got the adjustable nozzles, the exchangeable nozzles. One is silver, one is gold. I've actually got the silver nozzles, which is the one that I like the most. You could say, okay, with the nozzles you can get a little bit extra tuning, a little bit more extra liveliness in the sound. That is true, but I still feel that the silver nozzle is the one that offers the most balanced sound, at least to my ears. And comparing it in that format with the SM4 in its only format in terms of that aspect, which because it doesn't have any exchangeable nozzles, and even with the gold nozzle, it never did anything that I would say better than the SM4. It never did anything that I would say no. Yes, it makes sense if, as I mentioned for the Phoenix Call, and I mentioned as well for the Neo 3, if the price point here was something which could be made a solid argument for the Phoenix Call, and was a very solid argument against the Neo 4, against the SM4, no. Against the SM4, it is just a better IM. The bass, the mids, the vocals, the timbre, the tone, everything is just that little extra more well executed, and that extra more well executed, the price difference that exists is justified. Okay, let's put it that way. Canta. Again, an interesting proposition by QE. It brings a nice case, very much like the case of the EW300. Also brings some nice tips. I'm not using the stock cable. The stock cable here of the Canta was this thing that maybe disappointed me a little bit. I'm using here a Chimera cable, as you might have noticed. In terms of its build, very similar to the build in terms of its shape to the EW300, although it's a metal faceplate with a resin shell, while over there it is an all metal shell. With regards to the drivers inside, I wasn't able to confirm the drivers size, to be honest. I'm not sure if it's an 8mm or 10mm dynamic driver as well. The planars, I'm assuming, are as well 6mm or 5.8, which is what these IEMs all are using. There's 2 planars. And again, I'm assuming that the planars are once again handling more the upper mids and treble, very much like they are here in the W300. However, the way that they've been tuned here, and the way they are tuned in the EW300, you are straight away greeted with a much more noticeable presence of the planars. That's very evident. You can notice it, and it's something that planars like BAs, like everything, they've all got their peculiar tonality. They very own timbre, and you either like it or you don't like it. In the EW300, in the SM4, in the Neo, and to a certain extent as well, in the Phoenix Core, the way that those planars have been tuned makes them very smooth. Let's put it that way. Yes, there's various various degrees of that smoothness. The smoothest two are probably the EW300 and the Neo, and then the brightest one will probably be the Phoenix Core, and then the one that has the best compromise, in my opinion, is the SM4. Over here, the planars are the ones that are the most noticeable out of all of them. They are noticeable, and what that means then is that yes, it will bring, or it will give the IM a very detailed sound up top. So in terms of its upper mids and treble, it is more energetic than the EW300. Whether it's superior or not comes down to I guess a personal preference. So if you're all wanting a more relaxed sound, I would say EW300. If you're all wanting a more vocal centric sound, a sound which is going to be maybe technically more proficient, then definitely the Canta will be maybe the wiser choice. Bass wise, very similar to the bass of the EW300, although I found that maybe because that extra energy that you have from the planars, the bass sounded just that little extra more incisive, that little bit extra more clean. So the hits sounded more start stop. Almost gives the bass a BA kind of execution, but you notice it's not a BA, obviously, and I think it's just down to the planars and the way that the planars are then interacting with how the bass is. Mids, again, very similar. Once again, just a little bit extra more detail, a little bit more open because of that extra energy that the planars are bringing into the response. Up top is where then, like I said, you find the difference between the two of them. Up top, the female vocals are more detailed. There's more crispness to the sound. Technically, there's that sound stage that I was talking about. Even if maybe you could think that okay, maybe that sound stage is more present, but it's a fake sound stage. But nevertheless, it's there. Better imaging, in my opinion, better detail retrieval. I found, however, that contrary to the EW300, which never really suffered from whatever source I was connecting to it, even like I said, I tried the Q15, which is warmer sounding. I tried the RU7, the UK. It kind of always sounded very much similar. There were a little bit of a differences here and there, but nothing too outrageous. With the Canta, I did notice that was more noticeable. So I would perhaps say that the Canta will be a little bit more picky in what source you choose. So something like an ESS based DAC dongle might not be the ideal choice. I honestly, the very little that I listened with my M15 wasn't suffice for me to give now a proper opinion about it, because I just like so much using the Yuki and the RU7 that I kind of left it with these dongles for the whole for the whole comparison to kind of be a little bit more fair. But I did notice, and again I will repeat this, that with the M15, which is an ESS based DAC, the sound was just maybe a little bit more artificial. Okay, in terms of the timbre and the tonality, I didn't dislike the timbre and tonality, but if I have to be totally honest, I did prefer the timbre and the tonality of the EW300. It sounded just a little bit more organic. male vocals, female vocals, like I said, they sound just a little bit more extra crisp, a little bit more detailed here. So overall, it's not this one, the EW300 is better than the Canta, or the Canta is better than the EW300. These two IMs have been tuned and focused at two different crowds of people. You want a warmer, more, let's call it old school, more organic type of sound, the EW300 might be the better choice. You want a more clinically capable, a more technically capable sound, a little bit more clinical, but never that clinical which is sterile, which is the problem that sometimes happens. Then the Canta is the better choice. And the reality is I liked both IMs. However, and if I have to be, again, totally transparent, out of all of these IMs, the ones that I was kind of going most of the time to for a first comparison, for a first, was the SM4 and the Canta. And what I am basically saying by that is that the Canta and the SM4 are actually more similar overall in their sound than I would say the EW300 is with the SM4. It is noticeable that the SM4 has got that little extra amount of detail up top, that extra amount of atmosphere of technical prowess, let's put it that way, which I found more times or more often on the Canta than I did find on the EW300. Again, let me repeat this. Both of them are excellent. Okay, both of them are excellent. They are just tuned in different manners, and so it will come down to what your personal preference is, what type of music you like listening to. Those are factors which will make the choice here be one or the other. It's as simple as that. Comparing the Canta with the EW200, the Canta does make itself noticed. You do notice that you do have those planars. They're adding extra detail, extra everything. There's more of a difference between these two, between the EW200 and the Canta, than there was between the EW200 and the EW300. So again, I think that says already a lot, and you can understand better where the Canta sits compared to the Phoenix Call. And however much it's going to pain me to say this, because like I mentioned earlier, I really, really like the Phoenix Call. I've always liked the Phoenix Call. The Canta, if here you make an argument for the Phoenix Call, the price difference and so on, over here, I have to say that the Canta does edge out the Phoenix Call more times than what I was expecting. And it just, again, the bass is just that little extra amount there. It is just more often slightly better than the Phoenix Call than what I thought it would be the case. So a more difficult choice here. Okay, this does cost $89. That's about $115. So there's like a $25 difference here. If you really can't stretch yourself, you won't be disappointed with the Canta. Compared to the Neo, and again, I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to, seem like I'm being unfair. The tuning of either one of them is very different. That's a more organic tuning, more mid-focused in that old school type of way. This is more clinical, more technical, more technically inclined. That will be the first thing to dictate the choice. But the Neo 3, however much it pains me to again say this, doesn't have anything truly stand out to justify a price of twice the money. Basically, it doesn't. Compared to the SM4, finally, and I've kind of already said it, they are very, very similar. Would I choose the Canta of the SM4? I'm gonna say no. I would still choose the SM4 because the fact that it's got those extra drivers there and the way that everything has been so coherently well matched, it just makes the SM4 an overall more polished product. Is it a huge difference? Let's say that it's a noticeable enough difference that if you can get an SM4, like sometimes I've already seen it as low as $130, I would say the SM4 will be overall the better choice. I think it will be the IM that will bring that compromise between audiophile correct, being organic and old school in its sound, and also at the same time being technically capable. It just brings those three components to a closer overall score. The Kiwi Ears does a fantastic job, but you do notice that it just loses out to the SM4 in terms of being audiophile correct, because those planars, although very well executed, they are slightly more colored in the way they present themselves. And I guess that's basically it, guys. I mean, I think I've laid out things in a very nice, clear manner. All of these IMs, like I said, they've all got their pluses and their minuses. That's the reality. The EW300 as a single DD is an absolute killer IM. That's the reality. The Phoenix Call, it was one of the first to bring planars, microplanars, into the picture, and for that it deserves its place. It deserves its merit. Compared to what we have now being offered, it still can hold its own, but it's becoming a little bit more difficult. I think it's time that Celeste maybe thinks about an improvement over the Phoenix Call, and I think the first big improvement they should do is add a bigger dynamic driver. Okay, they've got really good dynamic drivers, that's the reality. So maybe an 8mm dynamic driver from the likes of an Urd or something, that could be a way to just give that little extra bass energy that will then make everything up top a little bit more coherent in the way that it sounds. If I have to really nitpick, you notice in the Phoenix Call kind of each driver area or zone of functioning. Okay, SM4, I think enough has been said about the SM4. It's an absolute beast of an IM, period. I mean, I don't want to beat around the bush here and oh no, it is an absolute beast of an IM. The Neo 3, it has its positive points. I think that if the Neo 3 had just been a little bit more competitive in its price, I think people would look at it in a different manner. Yes, it does bring good accessories. Yes, it does bring a nice cable. All of that there is there without a doubt. But when you're talking $199, you straight away enter another price bracket of where you have some very, very good IMs. And even just comparing the SM4 with the Neo, I mean, the SM4 is just a more competent IM. That's the reality. EW300, fantastic IM. I mean, really, honestly, I cannot say there's anything bad about it. If this is what you can afford and you want to have a taste of what its brother, this SM4, is capable of, yes, I would say definitely. If you are maybe one of those few people that didn't enjoy the SM4 because they thought it was bright or too bright, which I don't find, again, the EW300 is a very solid, viable choice. But as I said as well earlier, the difference between the EW300, when I listen to it with my music, and the EW200, the difference isn't as big as what I thought it would be, honestly. And then finally the Canta, Kiwi Ears and SIMGOT. Let's be frank here. Kiwi Ears and SIMGOT have probably been the two brands in the last couple of years that have been the most surprising. They've brought out product after product which are very competent in their tuning. SIMGOT, the EW200, the EM6, the SM4, the EM10, the EA500, the EA500 LM, the Format, all of them are exceptional IMs. Kiwi is the same thing. The cadenza, the quartet was a little bit. I was expecting a little bit more from the quartet, to be honest. But the melody, the quintet, they've also made sure that what they launch is the result of some careful planning, careful listening to what the market is wanting, and then doing their very best to execute that product in a very competent price. And like I said, the Canta is a perfect example of it. I mean, $89 obviously is not pocket money. It isn't. It's a lot of money for a lot of people. But when you consider what they are offering, which is very much the same kind of configuration as you have on the Neo 3, and they're doing it for less than half the price, that's a very big testament, because it's not the quality of the build that stands behind. It's nothing. That's the reality. Nothing. So that's it. I mean, the choice between these two will basically kind of be down to what you prefer in terms of sound, because price wise they are both basically identical. What do you prefer in terms of sound? Do you prefer a sound which is more along the lines of the SM4? Then probably this is the better choice. Do you prefer a sound which is more along the lines of the EW300 or the Neo 3, which is a more warmer presentation of that planar, a little bit more relaxed? Then definitely the EW300. All right, guys, show you the graphs in a second video, but for now I'll leave you with this. All right, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask me. You take care now. Bye bye.